Hello, my name is Kayla Vanson. I'm here with the Cultivating Calmness podcast, and today I want to talk a little bit about teens, teen dating, teens and technology. And if you're a parent and you're listening, these are some important things for you to consider when you have teenagers or even younger now, some preteens who use technology, have smartphones or electronic devices, and things you might want to consider. So let's talk today. Let's dive into this topic and learn a little bit about this. If you're a teen listening, maybe you can learn a little bit from a parent's perspective or think about some of the ways that you can protect yourself when it comes to the relationships that you have with people, especially when you use technology. So I thought this would be a good topic to cover, something that has been covered or we are talking about in a youth group that I am part of, and they're talking about teens and dating, and specifically related to as being a youth group, their relationship with God and what that looks like in a dating relationship. Today, I'm not going to focus too much on that specifically, although that is important, especially for people who do have a relationship with God, who are Christian and want to preserve their relationships and follow certain paths. There are different things that they may want to do and that are recommended. But for people who maybe don't, or just in general terms, when I talk in general terms about being safe when you're in a dating relationship, especially for teenagers, all of these things are going to be true. It doesn't matter who you are, what walk of life and what path you are on, what you believe in, what you look like. These are going to be the same for everybody. And that's why I wanted to share these things with you today. So, where do we start? If you're listening, if you're a middle-aged adult like myself, you can probably think back to when you were dating and what life was like when you were dating, and it probably was not anything like what you are seeing today. I know that is the case, and I know when I was dating in a serious relationship with my now husband, technology was starting to become more pronounced in our lives. The iPhone came out while we were in the kind of initial phases of our dating relationship, but I don't know that I got an iPhone until I don't know if I was in college when I got an iPhone or not. I cannot remember. And even with cell phones, I started to get a cell phone I think I had my first on my own cell phone in high school. I had to share one with my brother for some of middle school and maybe some of high school. And, that was up and coming, and the amount of text messages. So if you were, if you're older than me, then you know that cell phones weren't a thing, and it was the phone attached to the wall, and you didn't have internet access, and dating looked very different from the way it does today. So there were a lot of restrictions and a lot of concerns when the cell phones came out. I know, parents were very upset when their kids surpassed the text message limit. There were limits to text messages, and you had to pay, per text message. And if you went over, it was, 5 cents a message, and you would go over by like hundreds of messages, and, you were racking up lots of money with text messages. And now all of that is free. So, at least for the most part, as far as I'm aware, so it's not something that is tracked like that anymore. So our teens are texting, but what they're really doing now is not so much texting, but messaging in different apps. So the apps aren't being monitored, and we don't know how many people they're messaging with, if they actually know these people, what they're talking about, because they're all hidden in these apps. And sometimes within the apps, there are hidden features to keep the messages away from people like you, mom and dad, so that they can have privacy. So we want to give our teens privacy. We want them to learn responsibility and to learn how to, protect themselves and to police themselves. However, with technology comes predators. And that's my biggest concern for teens these days are the predators that are out there. And we can trust our teens, you know, you could trust them for everything. You could trust everything they're doing and never have a doubt in them at all. But can you trust the other people that are out there? Can you trust the people that are trying to communicate with your children? And I would say that we can't, unfortunately. Unfortunately, there are creeps out there. There are people out there that are specifically targeting your children and trying to get to them. And there are ways that we can protect our children and help them, talk to them about those things. So it doesn't matter if you have the most trusted teen in the world, if some person messages them and threatens them and convinces them that whatever they're threatening them is going to be real, your teen may succumb to that rather than reaching out to you, their parent, or another trusted adult to seek that help from you. And we want that from our children. We want them to trust us enough to tell us when something goes wrong so that we can help protect them. So, talking about concerns and how these things can lead to concerns in dating. What I see in teens, I work with teens and adults, and even in the last 10 years working with teenagers, I've seen things change, not always for the better, unfortunately. And a lot of that is due to the amount of technology that our kids are using, how much time they're spending on their technology, and the importance of technology to them. And I recently I'm actually in the middle of reading a book called Hold On to Your Kids, and I can't remember the first author, but the additional author is Gabor Mate, and they talk about how our teens, our children, are finding prominence and finding attachment with their teens or with their friends first rather than with their parents first. So in a world, 50 years ago where kids would attach with their parents and the adults in their life, and that's where they would get their information, and that's where, they would build off of. Now they're getting that from their peers. And why sometimes relationships struggle with parents is because they're finding attachment and connection with their peers first, and with you, mom and dad, second, or not at all. And that can shape some of that technology usage and how much they're sharing with you or not sharing with you, how much they're keeping private and secretive. So I am no internet expert or app expert or teen expert by any means, but there are things that I know and I want you to be aware of. So there are certain apps that children use, and I'm not even going to be able to hit the bulk of them. I'm just going to focus on a couple that I know teens use a lot of, and Snapchat is one of them. So Snapchat has a lot of great features that help kids to stay in contact, but some of the features that can get in the way are those features where they have those streaks. And I don't know what they call them exactly, but when they have to get on and they have to post pictures and they have to send things every day, and some kids have 1,000+ days in a row, that means they have been on that phone, on that app, communicating with teens every single day for 1,000+ days. That's over 3 years. Okay. And if they ruin that, right, if they don't post on a day, then it starts all over, and that's a bad thing. So everybody is trying to get to, have the longest streak, and, that's a piece of their connection with others. So what they will do if they've been grounded from their phone, they will give their friends their passcodes and their information so that their friends can post for them. And then there are features within that app where you have public conversations, meaning like if mom and dad got on my phone, they could see it. And then there are secretive conversations where parts of things are hidden. Then there's Instagram, that's another big one for teens, and they have a profile that maybe they invite you to and they friend you on, but then they typically have another profile that is just for their friends. So that's the things that they're sharing with their friends that you aren't seeing and you aren't able to monitor because you don't know about it and you aren't friends with them. And in both of these, they can be public or private. So if they're private, then they can only friend people. They can request a friend. They can also accept a friend request, but it has to be requested versus just anybody. I could go through and follow a bunch of people. Snapchat is similar in that if you're private, certain people can see you and certain people can't see you. So a lot of teens want to be public, and they are, and their location is being monitored, meaning it's in the app. And so anybody can see where they're located. That could be a stranger, that could be a friend. And I think teens are aware of this, and some care and some don't care. And that's where predators can exist. And I actually I've had teens talk about how they've been sent unwanted messages, unwanted images, and what they aren't aware when they get into relationships, whether this is a wanted or unwanted relationship, a wanted or unwanted message from somebody. I've heard from both where kids have received from complete strangers inappropriate messages, and those are some of the concerns that can happen when they aren't monitored on social media, is that creeps are going to send them things that they don't want. And what do they do about that? Do they report that? Do they just delete it? Do they block them? Luckily, most kids will be like, oh, I deleted that gross stuff and I blocked them. And as adults, I want to know, who was that? Can we send that information over to the police? Can we get these people taken care of? And unfortunately, sometimes those are other teenagers. And what they aren't aware of is that in most places, sending images of themselves to other teens, whether it's via an app or text messaging, is considered child pornography. And sending it as a child can have them registered as a sex offender. If a prosecutor or somebody feels that they want to prosecute that case, that can happen, and it has happened. So it's not fair, but it happens, and it's out there. So being able to monitor your kids' technology, having them share their passcodes with you, having them know that you could check in on them and walk in on them at any time and check anything, that they shouldn't have anything going on there to worry about. And it's a balance. I know we want them to have privacy. We also want them to know that they still have rules to follow, and they still, live under your roof, or whatever your rules may be. So there are a lot of times in technology are things called technology contracts. So you could go to Google and type in technology contract, and you can find many different varieties. But what that comes down to is a conversation with your teen about what the negotiable and non-negotiable things are within their usage of technology. And you can decide what those are. But some examples of non-negotiable things may be how much time they're allowed on it, or where their phone goes at night, or whether they are or are not allowed to have their phone at the table, or if their friends are over, if they're allowed to have or not have their cell phones, things like that. So I've seen many different celebrities or clinicians or people who put information out there that have different rules around those types of things in their homes. And I have friends who have, baskets at the front door, and everybody's phone goes in the basket when they walk in the door. Why? So they're not sitting there on their phones like this while they're hanging out. They're spending time together, but they're not spending time together. They're on their phones and they're communicating with other people, but they're not having deep and connecting relationships with people because they're on these devices all the time. So you can decide with a technology contract what that might look like for you. Maybe it's limits on time. Maybe it's how often you are going to check in, if you are going to have some kind of monitoring app on their phone, which many parents do. So bark.us is one of the top ranked apps and programs that parents use to install on their phones to monitor their kids' usage and devices. And they also have a lot of information on their website on different topics, and they have information on how to utilize and start a technology contract with your kids. So maybe you could go there and you can look up some technology contracts and that app and device to see about how you can monitor your teens. And it's not always about how much you do or do not trust your teen. Sometimes it's about how much you don't trust the people around them, or the people, the unknowns out there, because those predators are out there and they do target children because they know that they don't know. Now, shifting into like dating, relationships, and technology, the problems that I see is that when cell phones became big, it was calling and texting and wanting people to answer you right away. Well, that still exists, except I feel like it's even worse now. It's worse because teens are connected with each other on multiple levels and multiple apps. And they're tracking each other, they're monitoring each other, they're seeing what their streaks are, and they're seeing, if they're dating, for example, they can look on there and they can see, oh, you're on here now too, and you're my boyfriend, and why aren't you talking to me? And why have you left my message unread? And, why are you posting about this person? And I can see that you're in this location because I have your location turned on. And it becomes very possessive, and they monitor each other to an excessive ends, and there's almost no privacy, and there's no alone time, and there's no time to do their own thing. They are fully enwrapped and engaged with this one other person, and their identity is highly involved with this one person instead of figuring out who they are and putting themselves first. And when that starts to happen, they don't understand that the things that they are doing and taking part in aren't healthy. So the monitoring, the tracking, the having to know where they are at all times and why they haven't answered their message within 0.5 seconds, and why they're talking to other people, and the jealousy that I see, the jealousy of like, well, he's talking to another girl and he shouldn't be talking to another girl. I'm the only girl he should be talking to, and vice versa. It happens both ways. And why is that? Is it a lack of trust? Is it jealousy? Is it something else? I think it's a combination of many things, and that lack of boundaries that exists. I was talking with some people in my youth group recently, and some of those things did come up, that there is no ability to feel like I can do my own thing, that I have to have some kind of accountability with my partner, and what that accountability has to look like, and how much time I'm supposed to spend with them versus the things that I like to do. Teenagers can be busy. Some of them have jobs. A lot of them are engaged in like sports, and sometimes more than one sport, or other outside, school related activities. Maybe it's band, maybe it's orchestra, choir, theater, other clubs that maybe take a lot of their time. And when they have to balance that time with a significant other, it can get in the way of them figuring out who they are, and how to balance time, and how to figure out what this relationship looks like within my life versus how does my life fit into this relationship. So there is a difference there, and teens can really struggle with that. So what we then see is just some abuse. Now, maybe it's not physical abuse, but it's that mental, emotional abuse, those controlling natures, and both parties don't realize that they're taking part in this, and they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it, even from especially, from parents, but even from a therapist, when I am agreeing with their parents, like, yeah, that's not good. And I want you to have those things with your significant other. I want you to have that time. I want you to have that time with your friends. And is there a healthy way to do that? Is there a limit? Is there a way that we can help you to understand that your boyfriend telling you that you can or cannot do something is abusive, or that they're monitoring how much time you spend, or telling you where you can and cannot go, and how long you can and cannot spend, and if you don't answer me within a certain amount of time, then we're breaking up, or then you're in trouble, right? Those are abusive statements. Those are things that are not helpful for them, but they think they're normal. And I think that's the problem, is that this is normalized in teen dating culture right now, and it's not something we want our teens to partake in. So the best thing for you to do as parents is to talk to your teens about their relationships. Ask them what they want in a relationship. Encourage them to see see other things within their relationship and know and understand, where they plan to go with this relationship. What is the purpose? Is this just for fun? Is this something they're hoping to be more long-term? And if so, how do they think that that's going to happen? Do they get along with their family? Do they get along with their friends? Are there things they like and don't like about the person they are trying to date or are dating? Do they feel that it's okay to break up? What does it mean within their teen culture? There's things that teens are doing, there's like, they call a body count, and that's how many people they have had sex with. And so for teens who aren't having sex, they feel that pressure to have this body count. Maybe some of them aren't even dating, and their friends are over here saying, what their body count is and how many people they've had sex with. And if they aren't up to a certain number, then they're not worth anything and they can't hang out with them. And it's a really very sad that our teens feel this pressure. So we don't want them to feel that pressure. They're going to have it at school no matter what. We want them to be confident in themselves and to know that, that they know what they want and that they're okay with that no matter, what that is, especially if that's to not date or to have a non-sexual dating relationship and to or to be monogamous or to be, serious yet following their own path. We can help them as parents to do that. And so some information, some places you can go for resources for yourself, for your teens, especially when it comes to like dating violence and some of those boundaries that tend to be crossed in dating relationships right now, especially due to all the technology. And I could talk for an hour, I could talk for several hours about this, but I don't want to talk your ear off. I just want to give you some information. I just want to put a little bit of information into your head so that you can look a little bit more into this. And, maybe in the future, I can dive into some of these topics, in more in depth, but some resources, a common one that popped up a lot in me trying to find some resources for you was loveisrespect.org. So there's lots of information in there about teen dating and technology and the ins and the outs, the goods and the bads. You can definitely look there. breakthecycle.org is another one. That's breakthecycle.org. That's not cool. That's notcool.com. There's where'stheline.info. And I already mentioned bark.us. So all of those resources, all of those websites have resources for you as parents, for teens, to figure out, like, is this okay? Is this not okay? Is this healthy? Is it not healthy? What should I or should I not be doing in this relationship? I encourage you to go there. I encourage you to check those things out and let me know. Was it helpful? Was it not? Did you learn anything today? I hope you did. Definitely don't want to scare you, but I definitely want you to be aware that there are probably things that you aren't aware of related to your teen and their dating experience and just their technology experience. And you want to be close to them. So build and foster that relationship with them. Don't come at them as accusatory and demanding and pressuring, because they will push back and they will resist. We want to be their friend in this experience and their parent. You are a parent first, and then you can be their friend, but you do have to set limits with them, and sometimes they aren't going to like those things, and that's okay. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next week for the Cultivating Calmness podcast.